Hello and welcome to the Triple B podcast. We are the Buds Busting Balls. My name is Matt Worsham, known as Celiac_Matt on the Twitch and all the other things. With me is Mike Bowerman, Bauer Tendo on all the things. And here's an insult. I have a wheel to decide. Mike Bowerman is a fart eater. There you go, everybody. The wheel has spoken. He eats farts. Also with us is Scott Stevens. He's a man that is a son of a douchebag. There you go, Scott. That is your insult. Today, we are talking about All Elite Wrestling, the recent pay-per-view called Worlds End, and a few wrestling thoughts that we have. I hope you enjoy it. Let's play our intro music, brother. Yeah! All right. We're gonna start things off with the usual tried and true question: what are you drinking? What are you gaming? I almost said, what are you buying? I went full on like Resident Evil version on that one. I'm just gonna go first. I am drinking a Liquid Death. I forgot where my camera is. There it is. I am drinking the Rest in Peace. Mustache. Enjoy. I hope you enjoyed the crisp. I have been playing a million games, but one game I really want to talk about that I just started playing that was gifted to me by Cube is Undertale. Holy butts. This game is so good. It has so much charm. It is so fun. I love the deconstructed RPG elements, the humor in it, how you like fight, quote unquote. It's an amazing game that I think everyone should play. It is phenomenal. Having a blast with Undertale. I'm going to go to Scott first. Scott, what are you drinking? What are you playing?
First off, I just have to throw it out there that I would have betted money that you would have hated Undertale. So I'm pleasantly surprised to hear that you are big on that game.
No,
so
he likes RPGs.
I have a comment to say. You guys like when people say we think you like something and I end up not liking it, whatever it is. But when people say, Matt, you would hate it and I end up liking, that's when I get a little upset. I'm like, but I love it. How poorly do you know me to think that I wouldn't enjoy this delightful little game?
Okay, Matt, to be fair, like the Pokemon Unite thing, we cannot put we have no pulse on your taste and stuff.
Yeah.
It's really hard.
Wild card, baby. Anywho, yes.
Anyway, for what I'm drinking tonight, I'm drinking a nice crisp bunch of air because I forgot to bring a drink, and now I'm feeling dehydrated.
You need to
Good job for picking up the reference. As far as what I'm playing, I've actually just started playing The Last of Us Part 1. So I realize I'm probably the last person in the world to have played this game. So yeah, all I'm going to say though is like, holy shit. I'm not going to say that I love the game. I'm going to keep playing it. But like some of the things that I've seen and had to like do in that game so far, it's like, I don't like this. I really don't like the character I'm playing as. I don't know. Future episode, and as the weeks progress, I'll give you updates of my opinion of that game. But it's a very pretty game. It definitely has like some holy shit moments. I guess I'm enjoying it, but yeah, so far there's things in there I don't feel good about. Very much don't.
You're appreciating it is what you're doing. You're not enjoying it. You're appreciating it.
There you go. Thank you, Mike. Thank you for translating.
Game. It was the last game I ever played on the PS3. That was the PS3 send-off game, and it was good back then. I actually never played the remaster. It was one of those games where like I beat it, and I'm like, I think I'm done. Like that was a moment, that was great, but I'm done.
One thing about the game though that I hated in Gears of War, and as soon as I saw it was a thing in here, I was like, no, is they have like dog tags you collect. And as soon as I picked up the first one and I unlocked a trophy for it, this is like, well,
you got roped in.
Here we go.
You achieved,
you know me.
Wars.
I am a trophy whore, and I will.
Just play it through once. Just enjoy it for what it is, and then come back and get them trophies.
Okay, all right. Anyway, how about you, Mike?
Well, I am drinking a Coke from a nappy ass sandal. Look at that used nappy ass sandal.
That's the technical term for the sandal.
I'm drinking a nappy Coke. That's what I'm drinking right now. It tastes really good though. It's very refreshing.
No gusta flavoring.
And a quick plug before my game. Once you're done with The Last of Us Part 1, you should find a way to get HBO Max and watch The Last of Us show, because I love that game. It's probably my third favorite game of all time. the show kicks at all sorts of ass. It is so good. Anyway, so I'm drinking a Coke, and I gotta say, so I'm like you guys, I play multiple games at the same time, but I am really, really digging a game called Dave the Diver. That game is so simple. It's goofy. The artwork, like there are these cutscenes in like I don't want to say like 16-bit because it's not 16-bit, but like a retro style that are just all sorts of awesome. And it is so fun. It is so fun. It is Moonlighter, but better.
If there's one GIF anyone needs to watch in this game, watch the one of the black sushi chef. His is phenomenal.
Well, which one?
Yeah.
Because there's like 20 of them, and they are
Okay.
all boss. Every single one of them.
Truth be told, I have not played the game. I just saw this GIF. I'm like, that's all I need to know.
No,
This game
if
is
you go look up just a video clip, 30-second video clip of all, oh dude, such a good game. So Dave the Diver, man, really, really good game. Highly recommend it, and playing the hell out of it on that thing right there. Plays great on that thing, on the Steam Deck. I've put so many hours on that Steam Deck now. I'm fearing that I'm becoming more of a PC gamer here. I'm like, oh no, I gotta go get a PlayStation game or something.
Just to wash the stank of PC off. I gotcha. All right. That's what we've been gaming. That's what we've been drinking, guys. As I mentioned earlier, we're talking about AEW. We collectively love AEW. Rocking the hat right now for this podcast specifically. They just had a big show on December the 30th called Worlds End. We recorded it pretty closely after, but by the time it drops, it'll be about a week or two after. But it happened on December the 30th that we all watched. We're going to run through the matches, talk about it a bit, rank the matches, and then we're going to go on to a few wrestling related topics that we got on mind. So buckle up because you're going to get verbally power bombed onto the ring apron by the Buds. So we're going to go through the matches. That's what we're going to do. The opening match for the actual preview was the All-Star Tag match, which had a lot of folks in that match there. So the All-Star Tag match was those that did not win the tournament for the most part that they just wrapped up in AEW. So it was Claudio Castagnoli, Bryan Danielson, Mark Briscoe, and Daniel Garcia versus Brody King, Jay White, Jay Lethal, and Rush. Or Roosh is how they pronounce it.
Yeah, say it right.
Roosh. One thing I love about AEW is wrestling is typically a good guy versus a bad guy. But sometimes when you just have a lot of talent in the ring without clear and define what team is good, what team is bad, just the pure match itself and the athleticism is what can really make a match entertaining. So there is so much talent and so many storylines going into this match that like I had to watch everything. There's at no point where I'm like, let me look at my phone, let me go grab a drink. You have so much talent in this ring. I want to watch that. And that's why I really like that this match opened up the show. There was a little exchange with Bryan Danielson and Jay White. I'm like, oh my gosh, I need these guys to have a match. And the crowd felt it too. Like they're staring at each other and the crowd's just like, yes, give this to me. I want it. And when you can feel a crowd like just this emotion at the same time, they were like, wait, this could be a thing. And they all got excited. I thought that was a really good feeling. And it was cool to kind of see that and feel what they were feeling as well. I enjoy Bryan's stuff with Daniel Garcia, who they've been slowly pushing, which is good. We talked about Daniel Garcia like maybe a year or two ago when we were all playing Borderlands 3 about just how little charisma the guy had. And being with Jericho, I think, has paid off. Even if all he does is have that stupid dance. Very, very good wrestler. What he says on the mic, I think, has gotten a lot better. So him versus Bryan Danielson, I think, will be a lot of fun because that's what they teased during the match. And just Daniel Garcia winning the match, I think, is a good story. And Lethal even losing, who lost everything in the tournament, lost the match. I think this is where he's like, I need a reset, maybe split from Jeff Jarrett's faction, whatever the heck it was. I enjoyed this match quite a bit just because it felt like more of that tournament. This one, I'll let Scott go first. You actually watched this one, right, Scott?
I watched most of it, and it's weird. It felt like a thrown together match, which sorry, I got a very shocked look because randomly my Hulu started playing, and I was just like, whoa, what was very much, and I was like, do you guys hear this too? Oh no, it's just me. Anyway, sorry, you can edit that.
I'm not editing that out.
No, that's just
everybody's gonna know what kind of stuff happens behind the scenes.
Scott is crazy, and the wheel says he also eats farts.
At least I do not only pee sitting down like Mr. Worsham here. Anyhow, it felt like a kind of thrown together match. And I mean, there was the story of like, oh, these are all the guys. Well, not all the guys, but most of the guys who didn't win the tournament. So I don't know. It was a good match. Felt like most of those wrestlers, though, they like literally are the best wrestlers in the company, and they're all being thrown together in one match. I don't think utilized them very well, but I don't know. It was fine. Wasted potential, though, in my opinion, of the participants.
Just all of them? Just putting all that talent in the ring is a waste of their potential?
Yeah, I'm going to be real honest. That match happened. It was fine. But I came out of that match wanting a Claudio versus Brody King rematch. An actual, not part of the classic match, a Continental Classic. Like, give me them. Give me some beef there. Give me a little storyline there. Because when they wrestled in the Classic, good Lord, that was a great match. And then in that, like, they had their moments, and when he freaking catches him and spun him around, this move that all of us know about, it was still awesome. And I'm like, I want that. Like you said, I want a Danielson versus like Jay White. I want like all of these people. That's what made the Continental Classic great, not let's just throw them all together. Like, I don't know. I almost wish it was just like the runner-ups versus the runner-ups, like maybe a 2v2, right? Or something. Like, you know, like, and I feel bad for like Lethal and some of the others that like Garcia, which Garcia did get his time to shine in it, but it didn't hit with me. Like, it was good, it was fine, it wasn't bad, but it did seem like a waste of talent with how much talent was in there. I don't think I really dislike anybody in that group now. I'm looking at everybody. Even Garcia, I don't really dislike anymore. I'm just like, he's fine. He's fine. Before, I was like, no, I don't even want to watch his matches. He's fine. And then to walk away feeling like, that's fine, kind of tells, kind of telling.
And for the sake of time, I won't like continue that argument. So you guys kind of felt a little underwhelmed with the amount of talent there. Maybe they could have better utilized it in a different match. I just thought it was a good match. I enjoyed most of the stories going through it, but that is a definitely fair point. The match that followed this is a very interesting match, and you can tell with the way the crowd reacted, is Miro versus Andrade. Now, Miro won the match because the manager of Andrade, who is Miro's real life wife, cost Andrade the match at the end. Sure, kind of corny type stuff. But the reason that this match was so weird is both the guys in the ring, but also the fans were aware that Andrade was likely done with the company. And this was his send-off match, which we now have confirmed is correct. That was his last match in AEW for now. He'll likely sign with AEW or maybe be a free agent so he can keep wrestling in Mexico, Japan, things like that. So the crowd was not into this match for the first half of it, just because they're like, this match doesn't mean anything because we know somebody is leaving. You could hear it. You can tell when the crowd is silent, it just detracts from the match. So when you hear that, you can feel it. You'd be like, man, these guys, what they're doing in the ring is actually very good. Like, it's not like an old school, like Brock Lesnar versus Goldberg at WrestleMania 20, I think it was, which is one of the biggest hyped, under-delivered matches like of all time, one of them. So the crowd was just not into it at first. I absolutely love this match. Crowd didn't care, but good wrestling is good wrestling and makes fans. And as the match went on, you slowly like heard the crowd like, oh, these guys are trying. They're really trying. Holy crap. Look how hard these guys are working. Look what they're doing. That is an insane spot there. I do need Miro to be used on TV more. If you're going to have a quality match that's thrown together without really any impact and you're going to put on a show like that, you got to use Miro more. That's more of Tony Khan not using big guys, in my opinion, to the best of their ability. Not saying I could do it better, but I just want to see more Miro. This match was one of my favorites of the night because just the match itself, they told a great story. They had some great moments. They had great emotion. And you can tell both guys were like, well, I'm going to have a good match in spite of you. We're going to have one of the best matches of the night. In my opinion, I think they did. Do you guys have similar or different thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I really think you hit the nail on the head. And I never even thought about the Goldberg Brock Lesnar comparison because I think it's a really good contrast to that. As far as the match goes, it was all right. I mean, I was entertained. I don't think it was pay-per-view quality, and it definitely was thrown together in my opinion. But what really impressed me about that match was mostly Andrade. And I was never really a big fan of his. And hearing about it's been pretty well known he hasn't been really happy with the company for a while, from the dirt sheets and all of that. And so that kind of gave me a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth regarding him. But I think he went out the exact way that like somebody should go out, in a way that really gave me a lot of respect for him. That he didn't half-ass it, he didn't phone it in. He knew this was his last match in the company. In a lot of ways, like you said, I think Tony Khan kind of dropped the ball with both of them in lots of ways. But you know what? He went out there, he delivered, he gave a good match. And to Tony Khan's credit, or whoever booked that match, they could have completely buried him. They could have been a squash match, and Miro could have beat him in 5 seconds with a submission. But they let it be a competitive match, and even though this guy's very likely going to be part of your competitor's roster in a couple weeks, that's fine. They let him have a good send off. He didn't lose clean. It was kind of a dirty win, and I have a lot of respect that like you didn't bury the guy on the way out, and himself, he put on a good match and he tried. So a lot of respect for him. And if he ends up in WWE, you know what? I wish him well. I hope he has a good career over there, unlike a certain Rhodes over there. But anyhow, I get off topic.
Yeah, I gotta say, so if I would have heard that Andrade was leaving a year ago, I would have been like, all right, fine. And maybe this was Khan or whoever's booking just doing a bad job, because he was always talking. He was never wrestling. He was never doing what he should be doing. And I was like, dude, this guy's boring. I hate when he comes out. Like, I don't want to hear this. Over the past, I would say this year in 2023, we got to see Andrade actually come out and be a rock star in the ring. And both my wife and I were so impressed by this dude. And then when we realized, like, oh, this is his last match, and to see that, I was just like, this is why I grew to love him over the last year, because in his matches, he never half-assed anything. It didn't matter if it was a 2-minute match. It didn't matter if it was a 20-minute match. He was always in, and he had some of the coolest damn moves from a bigger dude that you'd look at and go, ooh, dang, man, that's pretty good. Really good. The match itself, it was more because Andrade was leaving and that it was that good. It didn't have any right to be that good for somebody leaving. So, and I think I agree with Scott. I don't know if that's pay-per-view quality ultimately, because it was, they're kind of been building up to it, but it lost steam by the time it finally hit the climax.
All right, there you go. I enjoyed the match for sure. All right, next, the women's championship match, which is interesting that this match went on for the TBS women's title. Usually this is the main title, so I kind of like that they flipped it around. But it's Toni Storm, the defending champion, versus Riho. And Toni Storm has quite possibly the greatest female wrestling gimmick of all time. She's like an old school starlet. The camera goes black and white when she shows up. She's hamming it up. It's a really fun gimmick. The match itself cracked me up. Just really solid wrestling. I really cracked it up when they had a planned spot with her and her butler, Luther. She yelled, "Do the thing!" And like they did this like tag team maneuver that was just super funny that I lost it.
She hopped on his shoulders, walked Riho over, and then like she jumped off and like it was so great, man.
It was a really good spot. Someone in my Discord that was watching with us said like he's like Bob from Overwatch, do the thing or do something. I'm like, all right, that was pretty good. So I enjoyed that quite a bit. The match itself I thought was a blast. I love just what Toni Storm is doing with her current character. And Riho, while somewhat polarizing just because she doesn't look like, a big mean wrestler, her matches are always one of the most viewed. And I think the most enjoyable matches that they consistently put on, they always have a pretty good match. I don't have a whole lot to say for it other than I enjoyed it. I love Tony's work. I enjoy Riho's work, and it was just fun. I enjoyed the match.
I'm gonna let Scott speak because I have a lot to say about this and another topic too. So Scott, you share your thoughts.
So kind of, and you're going to go and get this a lot for me tonight, spoilers, but going back, I didn't feel like it was a pay-per-view quality match. I didn't really feel like it had the build behind it. I think it was more of just a showcase for Toni Storm, which is fine because they definitely are going all in on her, as they should, because she is one of the most entertaining things going in AEW today. Just random dumb comment though. The main thing that I remember from that match actually has nothing to do with either of the women. It is the butler. And one line he said in particular that I was dying, and I've actually been spamming it at work since I heard it. And that is, "This is highly irregular." And so I've been spamming it at work. So good job to the butler. The butler definitely he always gives me a good laugh. So
Yeah,
but otherwise,
Luthor.
it was fine. It was fine. Yeah.
I really enjoyed this match a lot, and I think the
Yeah.
reason is because I was expecting it to be complete ass, not because of Tony Storm, but because I don't think Riho and Storm really would mesh well. And I was so pleasantly I was so happy to be wrong. I was laughing the whole match. This is probably one of 3 matches that I had my full attention the entire time. All the rest of the matches didn't have my full attention. And I love it. I mean, Tony Storm's charisma can carry the other person. So Riho doesn't have a whole lot. Riho's job is to go out there, be small, and play into being small, right? That's fine. She knows her spot. She does it. And I actually really like Riho. But Tony just carried it all. She just picked it all up on her back and just carried it all. I like that she is actually doing psychology in the ring, which... Okay, I got to talk about this. The women's division AEW is an utter mess, in my opinion. It is just a giant freaking mess, and it's made worse because there is some genuinely amazing talent in that division. I mean, on the mic, in the ring, both. Tony Storm is a perfect example of this, okay? She was something else 7 months ago, and she turned into what she is now, and she is so entertaining, so over. The women's division needs a swift kick in the ass. It needs, I don't know who is booking that stuff. They need to get replaced, moved somewhere else. Somebody else needs to step in. Okay, and I also want to talk about here. Charlotte Flair, okay? She is rumored to have gotten a very, very, very substantial contract. Substantial, okay? Because they know she brings people. She usually puts on she puts on a show. She does what she's supposed to do, right? She carries it. I look at Monet. I would love, and I'm going to call her Sasha Banks because Mercedes Monet, I think, is a stupid name. So, Sasha Banks, okay? You guys know this. I freaking love Sasha Banks. I would love Sasha Banks to be in AEW. She would not solve the problem that AEW has with this. She would not. As much as I'd love her there. They need to use the talent they have, work with those that don't, either play into the strengths of everybody or learn to, hey, you suck at charisma, you suck at speaking, team up with this person. Go team up with Tony Storm, right? She'll teach you something. Let the women that know what they're doing in the ring tell their stories. I cannot tell you, I think it was Dynamite or Collision. These 2 women were putting on a match, and it was a banger. It was really good. And then all of a sudden it ended. And both my wife and I looked at each other and went, yeah, they got the hurry up. That's what just happened. They didn't get the, okay, well, we're getting there. I guarantee you if it was 2 of the guys in there that were putting on the banger that they were, they'd be like, oh, okay, you're getting there. No, they wrapped it up, and so the women wrapped it up, and that was the end of it. And we were like, it was just getting going. It was so good. Let them do that stuff. Let them do psychology. And brings me back to what I said about Tony Storm. I loved in that match that she was like, so Riho's back, okay? Her lower back, something happened at the beginning, and then, so then what did Tony do? She goes over and she starts wailing on the back, starts slamming her back on the ground. So, and then Riho comes back and, she goes to do something to Tony and my back, think about it. How often do you see that stuff in women's matches? Normally we just see, oh yeah, your hair, oh yeah, and then they just kind of go. Or they're like Statlander and Willow, where they know we have like 10 minutes, so let's just do everything we can, and it just ends up being like, that you didn't tell a story, you just kind of did flips and did stuff, right? Which is fine. I loved that about the Tony and Riho match, and it was all throughout it. And they told this story, and I would probably say most of it was Tony, but I love that. That's what made me like that match so much, was because of the other stuff that you normally don't see, because the women are usually hurried off, or they push extremely green people that are maybe better out of the match, and then they're like, hey, here's a title for you, which we'll get to here shortly, and why that was such a stinker of a match. I don't know. Those are my thoughts. I feel very strongly about this. My wife does too, about the women's division. It can be top dog, and it's just a giant pile of turds on the front lawn.
So I have several thoughts on this one. Is one, historically, and this was pretty common on if you're reading the internets as well, is that the women's division is one of the more underbooked divisions in AEW, one of the more underrepresented one, which is insane with the amount of talent that they have, and more talent that will be coming back from like injury or re-signed, like Thunder Rosa.
Oh, the Rosa.
Yeah, at some point, Jamie Hayter is coming back. They just signed the Virtuosa today, January 3rd, showed up at AEW tonight. And they just so much talent there. Britt Baker will be back at some point. I think their biggest issue, and I'm glad you said it because I was going to talk about it quite a bit, that they have a lot of talent that is just not good that they have been showcasing lately. Now, I understand you need to develop your talent, but you kind of need to have a decent floor first of existing talent that's featured before you really start to develop more. Case in point, Sky Blue. Still can't stand watching Sky Blue. I do not think she's good in the ring. I think she's gotten better. I love the gimmick change, the music change, the look change. I love it. She's getting better. That's what needs to happen. Then you look at Julia Hart, who's had a really good push. I've really enjoyed her push. She's the TBS Women's Champion. I think that's one that they've done well. But the issue is that they have all this really good talent that's just not being used that often. And I think more importantly, it's not they're being used often, it's that they're not being used consistently enough to further anything. Which is why you get matches where we're just here to do our moves and leave, or we need to do a million moves a minute and leave. Whereas here's a great example: Tony and Riho. They had the time, they told the story. That's basically, I think, what you would want to see more of, is give them the time, let them have the story. This pay-per-view, if you count the pre-show, had 3 women's matches. Usually at most you get 2. Sometimes you only get 1. So getting 3, I think, is a step in the right direction. I do think it's better than when it was, and you might agree with me on that one. I think better. But the bar was a little low. I think it's getting better, and with the talent that they have and with how much TV time that they have, and there's been some pretty strong rumors recently that they might be introducing a women's tag titles, which potentially means 3 segments to really get the women more time. That's where you really develop people, I think, is with like tag team stuff like that. So I don't disagree that it's been pretty abysmal. So I think AEW has failed at booking the big man. I feel that they failed at booking an entire women's division. Not failed, just it can be better.
Let's kind of jump in really quick before we move on. One thing I'd heard, it's news to me, and it actually kind of really irritates me, is hearing how they're going to introduce a women's tag team title. So don't get me wrong, like definitely I'm all for women getting more time, but I think the big trap they're falling into is they're at the point where women only get a match if there's a title on the line. And I don't really think that's right. I mean, look at the men's division. Most of the time you have all these different feuds like a lot of feuds for the men's division aren't involving a title. They're telling a story outside of the title. They wrestle and it can still mean something. I feel like AEW is just throwing more and more titles out there and creating more and more titles to be lazy and try to make you care about something without them having to do the hard work of making you care about the match. If the only way they can get you invested is by making a title and just throwing it out there and having to defend it and not putting in any build in it other than, oh, yeah, they're wrestling for the belt, this one really wants to be a champion, that's lazy. And I don't know. I'll talk about this more later, but big AEW fan. I went to 4 AEW shows last year, opposed to like 8 years since I went to the last WWE show. But I am worried about AEW. I very much think they need to go and do some pretty hard pivots. I don't really think they're on a good course right now. And, most of all, I'm starting to have my doubts about Tony Khan. But I know that's a huge bomb to drop at this point. We're still going through the pay-per-view. We're ranking the matches, but that'll come later.
The plan was to get through this and then dive into the topic. But hey, we had a nice natural segue. I still think Tony Khan's the best thing to happen to wrestling in recent memory.
If for nothing else, that competition, and he seems to be a genuinely decent dude.
Yeah,
makes boneheaded decisions sometimes, but I'll take that over.
Is going to do at any point. Yeah. I'm not going to be a full-on apologist, but again, I think he's the best thing to happen to wrestling in a long time because he actually cares about it. And one thing, I respect even business decisions like, hey, we're not going to use this guy anymore, but we're just going to let his contract run out. They get paid. A lot of people, their contract just goes, it's done, they can move on. So they're still getting paid. They're not like just straight up cutting people, maybe unless they ask for it. I don't know. But just for the sake of time, we'll start running through the matches real quick so we can kind of have a bit more free-form chat. This one I don't think we need to talk about very much, which is Swerve versus Dustin. It was supposed to be Swerve versus Keith Lee. Keith Lee has some form of legitimate ailment that he wasn't cleared for, so they threw Dustin Rhodes in there. Before the match, they just had Swerve obliterate him with a cinder block in his leg. I'm like, okay, that's fine, whatever. They don't have a match. He beat up an old man. Then they had a match, and then the old man that just had his leg smashed with a cinder block somehow was farting. Wow.
Yeah, he's farting.
Back. He could have been farting too. Most people fart.
I fart all the time. I'm doing it right now. I love Dustin Rhodes. I just didn't like this as a story where you a legend, an older wrestler, you completely take him out with the cinder block. Okay, that elevates a storyline. And then they had a full-on match where he fought back, did a Canadian Destroyer, stuff like that. I either wish they ended it after the cinder block spot or didn't do the cinder block spot. Then you actually have a pretty decent match, which they were cooking. I just didn't care because of that. So I don't think we need to dive too much into it other than that's how I felt. I was kind of.
It was a giant wet fart. It was a wet Rhodes fart.
I don't think it was terrible. I don't. I think it was better than what it was being set up to be. One thing I do have to go into, again, for me saying I love AEW, I do pick on it a lot. And I do, Tony Khan did the same exact thing a couple months ago where he booked a match with Jon Moxley versus Orange Cassidy. And it turned out they had to pull Jon Moxley because he wasn't cleared medically. And that really pissed me off. It's like, don't advertise something if you don't know 100% for sure that your star is going to be cleared for it. And he did the same exact fucking thing with this match. Granted, it was a lot less profile of a match than Jon Moxley versus Orange Cassidy for the title. But there's a chance Keith Lee won't be cleared for this match. Don't book the match then. Don't go in. I doubt that there was anybody who bought the pay-per-view just to see Keith Lee versus Swerve Strickland. But at the same time, still, don't go and book stuff if there's any doubt that your wrestler is not going to be cleared for it. That really pisses me off that not only he's done that once, but twice in recent memory. So anyway.
Yeah. Some of those boneheaded decisions, right? Don't do that. And it sucks because he's actually that would have actually been a dope match. That's using your big man correctly. Bring up this old rivalry. He's still pissed off about it because Swerve ended up winning. Okay, this is great. Not right now because he's not cleared. Or he's looking like he might not be, right?
What's interesting is he wrestled a week or two before that, and the doctor uncleared him essentially. He wrestled, was fine, and then they
built the story. He went out there, he's the brick thing, the brick, tear your bricks down. And so then Swerve came out and said that thing. I was like, that was really weird promo. And that made sense when he didn't show up. And I was like, oh.
Yeah. Anywho, wasn't a fan of that one. The next match was the 8-man tag match, which we'll talk about probably a little bit later. But this was the bad guy group was Takeshita, who I love. He had a great match with Darby Allin tonight, by the way. Definitely watch it. Takeshita, Hobbs, although apparently I typed Hibbs in my notes here.
I was looking at it. I was like, who's Hibbs?
Takeshita, Powerhouse Hobbs, Ricky Starks, and Big Bill versus Sammy Guevara, Darby Allin, Sting, and Chris Jericho. This match didn't have a chance because shortly before this match happened, there were some now proven not at all factual, no substance to it. There's could be something there, but as of right now, there's nothing whatsoever substantial. Essentially, there was a sexual harassment accusation put towards Chris Jericho that had unfortunately no substance to it. And a lot of people just took it as like, oh, Jericho's a bad guy. Let's boo this man. And it just took anything from the match, which sucks
You
because
could
you had some
clearly
good talent
tell.
in there. Yep, you had some good talent in there. Sting is on his retirement run. He's going to have his last match in March coming up pretty soon, which is always exciting. Jericho just got some massive boos because that accusation came out. The crowd just went like, all right, well, you're a terrible person now. We're going to boo this man, which if he did those things, you should boo this man. You should. If anyone does those things, they are a terrible person and needs to be known and disciplined for it. But the guy that brought it up was just an angry journalist that was mad. And right now there's no substance who has now backtracked it. But because of that, the match just had no one. I don't remember anything about this match other than like, all right, Sting win. That's it.
I remember seeing signs that said Jerry go away and there must be an NDA. And I think both of those signs actually got taken out by security.
Probably.
Yeah, like I'll save my thoughts on this for later because we still have to have at least a little bit of content for this topic.
Yeah.
By the time we get to the end
we'll
of this,
dive into it. The match itself, I think, was fine.
We'll
They had
talk
some good
about Jericho.
talent.
It was
it's
fine.
It was an unfortunate match. It was basically trying to make the best of bad situations. One thing that wasn't mentioned is this wasn't the original intended match. It was supposed to be Chris Jericho and Kenny Omega versus the tag team champion Starks and Big Bill. And that was something that had to be pivoted away because Kenny Omega got very serious illness and like definitely scary stuff. Like I heard if he didn't go to the hospital to get checked out, 24 hours later, he would have had like a 50% chance of dying. And that's like, okay, that's scary. And I do really feel for poor Kenny Omega because he's had so many like medical setbacks in the past 2 years. But anyway, it was just between the Jericho stuff and already having to go and pivot because of Kenny Omega's illness. Yeah, it's just making the best of a bad situation, which kind of makes me surprised that they threw Sting in there because, like, as far as I know, this is probably his second to last match ever. And it felt a little bit like a bummer that he was being thrown into this awkward
I think they were
salad
trying to save it
of
with
a
Sting,
match.
is what they were trying to do.
Maybe. I don't know. It just second to last match, I feel like he deserved a little bit better than try to go and prop up this very awkward match. Like, if anything, I think it should have been like Sammy and Jericho versus Starks and Big Bill, and they get the tag team title shot since Kenny Omega couldn't do it or something. It just, I don't know. It felt really unnecessary tossing in Darby and Sting and the Don Callis family in there, and just I don't know. Again, kind of a booking decision I don't necessarily agree with, but anyway, moving on.
I agree with that one. It was an okay match. Now, for one, I was very disappointed in Abaddon versus Julia Hart for the TBS title. I was so excited for this one. I have loved the progression of Julia Hart as a character and a wrestler. Her entrance is one of the coolest in the business right now. Like, it looks so freaking rad. And Abaddon has a great look as well. I'm a big fan of them. I did crack up because when House of Black has matches, they have these like House of Black rules or house rules where the opponent can make the rules or somehow. The rules for this match was biting is allowed. That was it. You're allowed to bite your opponent. The crowd during the match, because Abaddon, if you've not seen them, they have one of the best face paints I've ever seen in wrestling. They do a great job of like just their presentation.
Just everything about it. Yeah.
I love everything about Abaddon. I'm a big fan of them. During the match, because both kind of have spooky gimmicks, the crowd was chanting multiple times. They were chanting, "This is spooky." And it's just like, it's kind of it was funny at first, but then it started taking away from the match, which honestly was really bad because the match itself, I did not think was good. I don't know what it was. They weren't meshing that day. It was just not a very good match. And that was a bummer. That's really my opinion. I just thought they both under-delivered. Maybe it was because of the crowd. The finish to it was not a good looking finish. It was a moonsault kind of landed, but Julia had to correct because Abaddon might have been a little too close to the apron to finish the match itself. I was a bit bummed with this one. I'm sure both of them were as well. They have all the talent in the world. I love both of them. I really do. And I think that if given another shot, they do a better one. And I hope this doesn't stop more usage of Abaddon and, of course, Julia Hart, who is the TBS champion.
Yeah, so fun fact, Abaddon, I didn't even know it was part of AEW. And all of a sudden on Instagram, the algorithm somehow got her. It was like, you would like this. And I was like, okay, who is this? And it was all about the face paint. I was like, damn, that's some dope like
They look
sick
so
get-ups
cool.
you've got going on there. Who is this? And it said Abaddon AEW, and I'm like, I've never seen this person in AEW. Who is this? Are they like, oh, maybe they do the makeup for people like Darby, right? And so then when I saw Abaddon wrestling, I was like, they're really good. This is more talent that I didn't know you had. But I think the problem is that what I've noticed with Abaddon's wrestling is she really feeds, like, she can have that charisma. She's really weird. She crawls out. She does all that stuff. But she really feeds off of the other person. Julia Hart is not there yet. Julia Hart feeds off of the other person as well. So you had two people that were looking to the other, like Spider-Man pointing to Spider-Man going, no. And that's kind of how it felt. It never got going because you didn't have an alpha and omega in that match. It was two people going, what are you going to do? Well, wait, what are you going to do? Well, wait, what are you going to do? And that's what it felt like. And then it ended.
It felt very like moving from spot to spot versus having a sort of
a talk in the ring,
story.
Right? A
Yeah.
conversation. They were just saying words at each other, and they said it was a conversation.
Yeah, my two issues is one, I don't think Abaddon works as a face. So I think Abaddon being in there as a face, I wasn't really feeling. There's just some gimmicks where I don't really think lends itself to that. But I think the bigger problem with that match is it felt like Abaddon was a filler, and the match we should have got was Hart versus Thunder Rosa. And it kind of was very weird that, like, okay, yeah, that seems to be what's billing it to. Oh, wait, no, it's Abaddon, not Thunder Rosa, that's the one getting this match. And I don't know. Their whole everything going on in Thunder Rosa has been so weird. And yeah, just, I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but it's just really weird. And that was another example in the long string of like really weird stuff involving Thunder Rosa, where it's like, all right, is she back or is she not? Like, are you building up to, I don't know, maybe they'll do a match later between Hart and Thunder Rosa, but I don't know. It just was really weird that how it panned out being Julia Hart versus
just Abaddon
like
showed
that.
up, wrestled twice, and was like, well, I'm going to fight you. Like, what? I mean, I like you,
Yeah,
Abaddon, but
I mean-
why? You know?
Yeah, that's fair. I agree on all those points. I also should have prefaced Abaddon is, by the way. I had someone in my Discord correct me on that one. I was like,
Abaddon's what?
They, them pronouns. So I had to
Oh.
keep that in mind. So it's one of those things, by the way. I should have prefaced with that one. Anywho, we will move on to what I thought was match of the night. Spoilers there. If you watch any match from this pay-per-view, I think it should be this one. You guys might agree. Christian Cage versus Adam Copeland, formerly known as Edge in WWE. This was a street fight, and holy hell did they have a street fight. They went all over the arena. They had some crazy spots. There's a massive welt, I think, on Adam's left eye that was just huge for getting hit, I think, with a kendo stick. It was insane. They even had a flaming table spot where someone went through they bounced off the flaming table, but
thrown over
someone
the
got
table.
Thrown, they clipped the table that was on fire and rolled off. But it was one of the best street fights I have ever seen. I thought it was the match of the night. Two vets telling a great story with violence, which we all love to see. I thought this was match of the night. Did you guys enjoy it as much as I did?
Oh yeah, I thought it was great. As an old school wrestling fan, like I caught the tail end of Christian and Edge kind of, still being in the company together shortly after I started watching, like maybe 2 or 3 years after Christian left WWE, went to TNA. And when it got to a point when Christian came back to WWE, I wasn't really watching WWE at that point. So I at least got to see a little bit of this time period where these two were together. So I definitely knew the history between the two, and I could really this is like a match 20 years in the making. And it was a little bit sad realizing like this is probably the very last time these two are wrestling again. But at the same time, it was kind of a gift because as of like maybe 3-4 months ago, nobody at all thought that that match would be possible. That as far as everybody was concerned, the time of Adam Copeland and Christian being able to wrestle each other was over. So again, it was sad to witness, but also at least, got that.
We got to witness it.
We got to witness it again, at least. One of the cool things about this match is there was multiple references to one of my favorite matches of all time, Edge versus Mick Foley at WrestleMania, I don't know, 22, 23. the flaming table spot was like a total reference to that match, which is a huge bummer that it didn't really work out well. Even Adam Copeland's ring attire was a reference to that match. So I thought that was really, really cool as being a huge fan of that match that they kind of did tributes to that. One thing that bothered me about the match, and I think it's more of how they did it and not necessarily that I don't know how to explain it. I appreciate what it resulted in. I just thought it was a lazy way to get to it. Is the match ended with Kill Switch using that guaranteed title shot he won earlier in the show to go and basically get the title off Adam Copeland. And he was forced to go and hand it over to Christian, who was the one who cashed in on it. And then Christian beat Adam Copeland after Adam Copeland beat him. So they did kind of
Copeland won the match, won the belt, and then essentially
Killswitch came in,
cashed in his not Money in the Bank for Christian, who then beat Adam. So basically, Adam won. 3 minutes later, Adam lost.
And I think that end, as far as like how an ending goes, I think that was the best possible outcome. Because one, Adam Copeland, still new to the company. Definitely you want to give him some wins. It kept him looking strong. He got the win technically. On paper, he's now been an AEW title holder. As soon as he won, it kind of immediately occurred to me, I'm like, all right, this is really weird that your TNT title holder is a bigger name than your AEW champion. And then he immediately lost it. So I was like, all right, cool. I guess that goes and takes care of that problem. And I don't think, even though he lost immediately, I don't think it made him look weak at all. And I think the best part about it is Christian basically got to go and sort of win the feud. And I think that's really important. And I think that kind of even ties into one of the reasons I want to do the match is throughout their entire friendship in WWE, wherever, Christian has always been kind of the one living in Adam Copeland's shadow. And that, again, factored into the feud, how Christian's like, oh, the only reason you're here in AEW is because, again, you want me to go and be in your shadow and you want to steal the glory. So I think with that in mind, it was pretty fitting that Christian ended up winning. And honestly, I feel like Adam Copeland behind the scenes was probably the first person to say, like, no, like, I came here to be with my bro. I don't want to just come here and win the feud against him like I've done for our entire career. You know, if this is going to be our last one, I think he needs to have his turn, his, you know, time in the spotlight. And I really, really appreciated that. Just going back, I do think it was kind of lazy that basically this is how AEW introduces their version of Money in the Bank, and they just used it as a plot device, basically to get the title off Christian, or get the title off Adam Copeland back onto Christian. So I think that was kind of a waste of the first cash in, you know, especially. Actually, one really interesting I just realized is the very first Money in the Bank winner was Edge, Adam Copeland. And he just, okay, now that I think about that, I kind of like it a little bit better because he basically got Money in the Bank in reverse, the very first cash in AEW. You know what? All right. I kind of just like talked myself into liking that. I think that was a nice little bit of
that's a nice
history. Touch. Yeah. Okay. You know what? I retract my criticism. I like it.
Everything you just said until then. What about
Ignore
you?
Ignore
thoughts on the match?
I still hate it.
Finishes?
I hated the ending. I love the match. The match. Okay. Match was fantastic. And I do agree Christian needed to win somehow. I was fully expecting shenanigans from Wayne Mom, which I'm not a fan of any of the Wayne stuff going on, but I digress. I hated that finish. I hated the way it got there. That does make it better, what Scott said. That does make it a little cooler to me. Like, okay, yeah, there was... I think there was some thought behind it, but part of me thinks, no, they just got lucky. They really just wanted to do a Money in the Bank thing, and that's how they did it. I hated it. I noped out of there really quick. I was like, I'm out of this. This sucks. I love Christian. I love Copeland. I don't like what they did here at all, period. And I still don't. I just didn't like it. I didn't like the way that it panned out. So... But admittedly, I'm not a huge fan of the whole, like, oh, well, the Waynes just decided to become part of his family. And I hate Kill Switch Luchasaurus. Come on, man. That guy needs to be split off, rebranded, and use the big man. But again, they don't know how to use the big man, so just throw him with Christian, and now his name is Kill Switch. There we go.
That
So,
one's a slow burn. So we all agree, match phenomenal, probably the best match of the night. If you watch any match, it should be that one. The finish we're a bit split on. My wife just stopped watching the pay-per-view after that finish. She goes, "Nah, I don't like this." I kind of like the finish. I'm more on Scott's camp on that one, but we'll move on for the sake of time. Only 2 matches left. This one I really, really enjoyed. It was Eddie Kingston versus John Moxley to determine the Triple Crown winner, meaning the one that basically there's a big giant tournament going on for like 2 months. These were the finalists of this tournament, and there's a lot behind this. A really good story. They are lifelong friends. They play into that element. And it was just, in my opinion, a very good, hard hitting match. I think one of Kingston's best matches. I know these guys here aren't as high on John Moxley as I am, and they're probably not as high
that
as Eddie Kingston as
that's
I
turned
am.
around for Moxley for me because but
Good.
I'll get to that.
We'll get to that. So I am a big fan of both of these guys, specifically their promo work. They are both some of the best in the ring. Or, I'm sorry, best promo in my opinion. Mox, I do think, is the true ace of AEW. But I digress from that one. Let's talk about the match itself. Kingston had a dive early on in this match
Dude,
where he
into that.
he based, like he hit the LED. There's like this LED screen going into like the outside ring mat, and he just clipped the corner with his head. Like my first thought was like that man is concussed because
Yes.
that looked brutal. But they kept going, and I think it kind of added to the match unintentionally. I like that it started out with actual basic wrestling because both of these guys are pretty heavy hitters. Mox is a pretty ground and pound guy. Kingston is a big chop guy. And in this match, I absolutely loved every chop he does. He has this one move, which is like these machine gun chops. He just chops the crap out of you. It looks, in my opinion, most of the time on TV, not good. Somehow in this match, like Mox might have been like, "You're gonna beat the hell out of me," and he did. And I thought those chops looked incredibly juicy. But even if concussed, Eddie ran through. Brian Danielson was on commentary and added so much to it, which I really enjoyed. The machine gun chops again looked really good. And I was wondering how much going after the Copeland versus Christian match changed the style of the match, at least the start, because they just had a crazy street fight before them. So I wonder if that's why they started with a more traditional wrestling match. What really stuck out to me was Kingston's facial selling. Like there was a certain move where he got hit, and the way he sold and looked, like there's just so much emotion coming from this guy. And I think that's why the fans love Kingston so much, is he feels like the realest guy. Because when he gives a promo, like there's a pro wrestler I follow. He said one of the reasons people like Eddie Kingston so much is because he thinks pro wrestling is real. He, the wrestler, treats it real. Like if someone asks him like, "Hey, how do you feel about that match?" He's like, "Why is this camera in my face? Why are you like?" He treats it as like a real not even breaking the fourth wall. He just treats it like a real thing, and that really shines through. And the match itself was amplified because of it. I thought they had a great match. I love the story. I love that Kingston won this, which is a big deal because his heroes are Japanese wrestling legends where they had tournaments like this all the time. I thought it was a great moment. Crowd loved it. I loved it. I'm very curious your guys' thoughts because I know you're not as big on Mox and Kingston as I am.
So this is gonna surprise you. This was my match of the night.
Really?
This was my match of the night. I loved Kingston when he first came in, and over time I was like, this guy just seems like he's not there. He's not invested unless he's winning a title or something. And I just wasn't a fan of Chop Fest every single time he wrestled. Like I just not my style. Okay, I understand. Never doubted his promo work. Great promo work. Moxley, loved him as Dean Ambrose in WWE. Loved him initially in AEW. I was so stoked that he was there. And you guys know what's coming. I absolutely hated that every freaking match he did, he had to cut himself. Every match. And it was lazy to me. It was boring. It was an easy way to get hardcore. And I hated it. And we've already talked about the blood and gore and the getting to that craziness before, okay? But there is a time and a place for that. Look at Hangman and Swerve. Holy hell, I'm going to remember that match for years to come. Moxley has started winning me back for the past like month and a half. Why? When's the last time he bled intentionally? I'm not talking about like he actually got clipped and there's a little bit of blood. When is the last time he bled?
He slowed it down.
Long time. My wife joked. She said he must have met his quota for 2023, and he was in a hurry so that he could do the end of the year and not have to bleed. And I went,
Yeah.
that's kind of what it feels like, and it's so much better for it because now his ground and pound, like I'm just gonna come out and beat the hell out of you, actually feels like something, not just like yeah, look at me bleed. And I'm like, no, you're stupid. Now it actually feels like it. And this match felt like two guys fully invested in this. And I loved it. And like you said, Kingston's face when he kept getting the slaps across the chest and he was on his knees, that look of just like, like I was doing that, watching it, thinking, that's probably what he's feeling right now too, because that looked bad. Looked really bad.
Yeah.
So I really enjoyed it. I'm
I'm
surprised.
happy. I am like off the charts happy that this was your match, because that shows you that even with guys that you're not the biggest on historically, if they put on a good show, they put on a good show.
And even a style that you don't necessarily like all the time.
Yeah.
If it's a good match, it's a good match.
Love it. What about you, Scott?
I think of all the matches that they could have ended it with, as far as the tournament goes, that was probably the match that had the best story, just from their previous times together. As far as the match itself, it was probably like the least interesting in-ring one that they could have put together, in my opinion. I think the match turned out fine, but I dare you to go and come up with another combination of wrestlers in that tournament that would have had, you know, couldn't have a better match than what they had. Like, honestly, any two you could have paired up and they probably could have put on a more entertaining match than that. Like, I was hoping it was going to end up being Bryan Danielson versus Swerve Strickland, or him versus Switchblade. And like, just saying those two matches right there, like I could feel the arm.
That's what I went into it expecting. Yep.
And we didn't get that. And we just got a fine match, lots of chops, lots of, hard-hitting style, but I don't know. It's one of those things where I should judge the match itself and not what could have been, but I just can't help but be kind of sad what it could have been. And I feel like, I like to hope that we still get those matches I talked about, but at the same time, obviously the clock is ticking for Daniel Bryanson, so I don't know. We'll see.
Daniel Bryanson?
But it was just, yeah, I totally watched that.
I was just going to let it go.
As soon as I said it, I was like, damn, I mixed it up. Damn you, WWE, his name. But I don't know. Missed potential for me, but it was
I
fine.
understand. And like I said, wrestling is subjective. We a lot. Right? Like, you have two guys that say this was one of the best matches of the night, and the other saying, like, it was good. I would have liked this better. And AEW has that. Last match, main event, MJF, the champion, versus Joe, where Samoa Joe did win this match. The start of the match, Adam Cole came out, which is just like, all right, we're finally getting the whole devil reveal. It's happening. MJF, obviously injured going into this match. And I'm going to say it right here. MJF, I think, is AEW's best champion they've ever had. The quality of matches that he's had, the moments that he's had, the work he's put in, that article that he wrote before the show came out. It's just like, this man eats, lives, breathes, loves professional wrestling. And he tries so many different things. He knows what the crowd wants before the crowd wants it. The fact that he got over a freaking drop kick as a kangaroo kick, and it's like one of the most over things in wrestling, insane. I love MJF. Great promo. I am of the mindset that he is back. He has re-signed with AEW there, and he's now going to be dealing with the injuries, trying to figure out the best way to heal. And I hope he chooses the best one for him, and it's a quick recovery, because MJF is one of the best things in wrestling. That being said, it was time for it to end. During the match, he really handed up the injuries, specifically with his shoulder. During the match, he did so many things to like do his moves, but also show the emotion, how hard it was. And it probably was physically hard for him. But there was several times where like he used one arm to move the injured arm so he could then finish the move and stuff like that during the match. And just moments like that, I just thought were really, really cool and well done. I liked that he was trying to skin the cat, kind of like basically you're hanging outside off the ropes outside, and you kind of pull your legs back to get in. Just got straight up drop kicked, and it looked sick. Samoa Joe did his muscle buster on the apron. Oh my gosh, that looked so fun. It was so sick. It was pretty standard from wrestling, where the face gets beat on most of the match and then gets his moves pretty standard stuff, but it was done very well with the MJF touch. I did pop for the F5. He did an F5 to
Yeah,
Samoa Joe. And I was like, let's go. That was so freaking cool. The ending, though, I felt was kind of weird, where he just couldn't go on anymore. And I'm like, no, that actually makes sense. This is a man that has injuries. He's gone through so much for over a year, been like the best thing going in AEW, and this is what needed to happen. His body's like, you're done. You can't. It's time to rest. And that's probably a reflection of reality there. And again, hoping for the best recovery from him. And then at the end of the match, it's revealed that the devil that's been tormenting him and several other best friend, Adam Cole, with the Kingdom, Roderick Strong, and Wardlow. Wardlow being that group, I think, is actually a good fit for him.
That was the biggest surprise from that.
Wardlow was the biggest surprise that he's part of the group. I think Cole as a devil, good reveal, makes sense. What they wanted to do the whole time. It's a shame Cole got injured because they could have done a lot more. The match I thought was good. I liked a lot of the emotion, storytelling. Not the match of the night for me, but what it was, I thought did a good job. And it was a good period to the title reign that was MJF. Your guys' thoughts on the match?
I have strong thoughts. I'm going to let Mike go next, and then I'm going to.
I don't. I mean, it's really simple. MJF makes me give a damn about his matches, whether they're good or not. He makes me care about them. And I cared. The devil was a safe bet who it was. The biggest surprise out of this entire thing was Wardlow being part of that group. And I was like, you know what? That's my favorite part of this entire match. Was the Wardlow reveal of all the. It makes sense with what they've been doing. It was good.
Scott?
So first off, kind of going back to Matt said about MJF being the best AEW champion, I give the edge to Kenny Omega personally, just because I think his belt collector thing was super cool and just how he did stuff in TNA, Impact. I think that's really was cool from him. But with that said, if not the best champ, not the second best of champion of all time, then the first, I would give MJF. He definitely had the title the longest amount of time, which brings me to my main beef. And booking wise, this was my most hated part of the entire show. And that's how they overshadowed Samoa Joe winning the title. Even both of you guys talking about it, I don't think either of you even actually said like Samoa Joe won the title or really talked about Joe at all. It's all been MJF. Oh, and also Adam Cole. When Samoa Joe ended the longest AEW title reign in the history of the company, MJF has basically been the face of AEW for the entire year, and Samoa Joe ended it. And he ended it clean. I mean, yes, he was wrestling an injured man, but he didn't cheat to win it. He was a badass. And I feel like they absolutely disrespected Samoa Joe. That was his moment to shine. That was a 25-year veteran, a person who's held titles in TNA and NXT and ROH. And he, arguably, that's the biggest title win of his entire career. And it was about the devil and Adam Cole. Like, I feel like that was very bad booking. Like, WWE, when Roman Reigns loses his title, they're not going to go and it's like, oh, yay, Cody Rhodes beat the title. Okay, now let's go and end some other angle that's going on. Like, that is the highlight of the show. That's what you end the show on. Like, that's a big deal. This is our main title. You just ended the reign of a really popular, super successful champ. Cool, this is your time. And Samoa Joe was robbed of that. And instead, they went and pivoted towards focusing on the devil storyline, which I agree had to end. And they promised it was going to end during that pay-per-view, and it needed to end. But I think the way they did it, it kind of completely took all the wind out of the sails of that historic moment, what should have been the biggest moment of Samoa Joe's career. And I think that was very unfair to Samoa Joe just to go and finish off the payoff for a storyline, which honestly, I wasn't feeling anymore. That kind of completely lost all its momentum.
Nobody was feeling it anymore.
And then just with all that said, I haven't said this to either of you guys yet. I think maybe I said it to Mike, but Matt never heard this. I think that was the worst pay-per-view I have seen from AEW. I think that pay-per-view was terrible. If I had to grade it, it gets to like a 4 out of 10 star. Like, you may have seen the trend of me bashing on every single match. Full Gear, I love Full Gear. I think Full Gear had a couple of crappy moments. I think overall it was a great pay-per-view. Double or Nothings I've seen have been great. Like, I'm not just Mr. Negative on AEW. Like, they do some great stuff. There was almost no, outside of Edge and Christian's match, there was no booking decisions I particularly really cared for, and some that I outright thought were like very, very poor, and I think are kind of very telling on Tony Khan is now at the point where like he needs somebody else to book for him. I don't think Tony Khan should be the main booker anymore, and I think that AEW title match is one of the prime examples. I think it was horrible. So that's my like bombshell right
and
there.
and I was gonna basically ask the general thoughts of the pay per view at the end of it. And in my opinion, I do think it is the pay per view has put on, but preceding that is a plethora of some of the best wrestling pay per views I've ever seen in my life. So
Yeah, it
I
was
will,
consistently such a good quality that like
yeah,
it was only a matter of time until they had a stinker like this one. And I
and
agree with you. I think overall this was a stinker. This isn't one that I'm going to remember 2 years from now. You know what I mean?
And yeah, I'll remember Edge and Adam Copeland versus Christian for sure. And I like that you brought up Samoa Joe because that's 100% valid. Like, all right, that is his moment. By the way, though, Joe, perfect fit. Such a great promo. His promo
Yeah.
to open up AEW tonight, oh, so good.
It
I'm
sucks
excited
that
to
he
see
didn't
what
get his
happens.
moment, but he's Joe and he kicks
He
all
knows.
sorts of ass. He's going to get his moment every freaking week.
He always does. I'm
So, I
excited
mean,
for
he
that.
does. He does it himself. So, good on him.
And I remember how back in the day we would order a wrestling. All right, we're paying $50. Shared it like Scott. We're like, let's get a pay per view, and we'll feel good if 3 of these matches are good. 2 of these matches are good. That was how low the bar was set. That's how low the bar was set back in the day. And now that AEW has set the standard, when we don't get that, it's like, was it bad? Or are we just expecting perfection? And I'll leave that just for you guys to muse on. I won't say one or the other. So we went pretty long. What we were planning to do is kind of rank all of our matches. We can do that just rapid fire if we'd like. We were going to talk a little bit about Jericho. I'll leave that up to the buds if we want to do that. Real quick, in order of worst to best match for me, Battle Royale, Swerve versus Dustin, Abaddon versus Julia Hart. Didn't like any of those. Chris versus Willow, fine. 8-man tag with Jericho, fine. Hook versus Yuta, fine. Tony versus Riho, we're picking up, we're cooking. I liked it. All-Star tag, I liked it. MJF versus Samoa Joe, liked it. Mira versus Andrade is my third, loved it. Box Kingston is my second. My match of the night, Christian versus Adam Copeland. You guys want to rank yours real quick?
Scott's really quick. You go for it.
Yeah, there you go. Worst match of the night, Abaddon versus Julia Hart by far. Second is everything, basically almost everything else. It's just for me, basically, I have like wet fart tier, meh tier, and then Adam Copeland versus Christian, where it's like, I basically almost no complaints from me there. Like, that's it for me. Everything else, for the most part, gets lumped into that middle of like,
yeah,
meh.
So mine, Abaddon, Julia Hart, worst of the night. Swerve versus Dustin would have been, but they were working with something that they couldn't help. So, okay, I got to give them that credit. Then the 8-man tag with Jericho, Battle Royale, Chris and Willow, Hook and Yuta, All-Star tag, MJF, Samoa Joe, Tony and Riho. Number 3 was Miro versus Andrade. Number 2 was Christian and Copeland, and my number 1 was Mox and Kingston. Surprisingly,
Love it.
I wouldn't have
Love
never guessed that.
I wouldn't have either, so that makes me happy. The one thing we kind of plan stuff, if you want a quick rapid fire thought from me, is if someone's going to make that claim, make sure that it's actually verified, make sure it's sourced, make sure it's not just some angry butthurt wrestling reporter that's mad. Like these things do require some form of vetting, and I'm upset with how quickly people just said, oh, okay, yeah, that's probably right. And maybe it is, we don't know, but the guy backtracked it. He said, I didn't mean it that way, essentially. So
Yeah, and
the fact
and
that derailed the match.
for those of you listening, watching, whatever, Matt, you kind of cut out a little bit there. He's talking about
Oh,
the
I'm
Chris
sorry.
Jericho allegations, where basically sexual harassment stuff with I don't remember her name.
Kylie Ray.
Thank you,
Kylie
Kylie
Ray.
Ray.
And I don't want to get into it because again, we're running long, but there's a lot more to this than that. And believe it or not, it actually goes back to CM Punk, in my opinion, where there's been kind of a little bit of behind the scenes war where CM Punk has his preferred wrestling journalists and the Elite and Chris Jericho and basically the AEW guys have their preferred wrestling journalists. The one who leaked all this stuff about Jericho or revealed all this stuff about Jericho is a known pro CM Punk journalist. And the way this all got triggered is Jericho kind of ran his mouth off on CM Punk's lawyer on Twitter, X, Titter, whatever you want to call it. And that looked like it triggered that journalist. And he even said himself in the post, like, I hate the fact that everybody thinks Jericho is such a good guy. It's like, all right, that right there shows you're not really being a journalist, which I don't know. The term wrestling journalist always makes me laugh. But if there is a thing as a wrestling journalist, you kind of blew, you don't have journalists writing presidential stuff saying, I think Donald Trump is Satan incarnate. With that said, I think Joe Biden has a good chance, blah, blah, blah. It's like, all right, you already eliminated your impartialness on that. And so starting it off saying, establishing that you have a bone to pick with Jericho and you don't like the fact that people like him. It's like, all right, it seems like you're retaliating because he went after your guy CM Punk, and then two, it sounds like you just don't like Jericho and you want to go and do some damage to his reputation. So I think it was shitty, and oh well, I'll just leave it at that. But just kind of a more carryover of the really shitty legacy that CM Punk has left in WWE.
Or AEW.
And I just want
to... Oh, even WWE.
Well, yeah, even WWE. What does it matter?
UFC, WWE, AEW, whatever CM Punk touches, it turns to shit. So there you go. The anti-Midas touch.
And I just want to put a warning out there. This is more towards me too. So like these allegations come out, and my initial response was to believe them because of all the nasty shit that we've had over the last few years that actually did turn out to be like, it was proven like, wow, these people did really bad things to women. I'm glad women are speaking up, and they should. But just to issue that warning that it's I understand like, oh, well, we got to side with them, right? I get it. But also have a little critical thinking. Just step back and go like, you guys know what my response is to it. My initial response was, damn, he done did it, right? But I was like, well, no, hold on. Let me stop. I don't want to cheer for him in case it is, but I also don't want to be like, no, he's a devil. He's done, right? We have to
Adam
see
Cole
the
was
proof.
the devil. I'm sorry, Mike. If you didn't.
Yeah, we found out Adam Cole was the devil, right? So you would have thought that it was Jericho. But like people already showing up there with Jericho way signs and stuff. I'm like, come on, guys. Like, really? So anyway. All right. Well, that was a lot of wrestling talk. And now what we're going to talk about is something that's equally as great. Scott, what would that thing be?
So when these guys say they're going to talk about their favorite segment is different than my favorite segment. That's right. You are getting an unexpected, out of order Scotty Porter Potty Rant.
Over there, he just doesn't care. He's going off on a crowd of people, throwing words in the air like he just don't care. He's yelling at all of us sheeple. It's a Scotty Porter Potty Rant. It's a Scotty Porter Potty Rant. It's a Scotty Porter Potty Rant. It's rant time.
Let me tell you something, brother. You know what really grinds my gears? You. That's right, you. The person watching this podcast. You know why? Because you haven't helped grow the brand. That's right. You have to know at least 100 people, friends, family, coworkers. Why aren't they all subscribers yet? Why aren't we up to 1 million subscribers, millions of views? You know whose fault it is? It's yours for not believing in us harder. So I want you to go and immediately text everybody you know. You need to call them up. You need to tell them, hey, guys, you need to watch these Buds Busting Balls guys. That's right. If we are not up at Logan Paul's level by this time next week, you don't want to know what I'm going to do. You have many ways. You don't like YouTube? That's cool. Just listen to podcasts on Spotify or whatever it is that you can listen to podcasts on. It's on you now, guys. My success, my life, my future is in your hands. Do not let me down. Thank you. And God bless the United States of America.
I absolutely loved that. You did
That's
2 in 1, baby. I'm speechless.
That was the absolute best rant, and now I have to follow it up with, I guess, the question. So play the other song.
I heard you had a question. So many questions. Why don't you ask your question, and the buds will bust an answer for you.
The viewer question is from Wing. For everybody, thoughts on the game Marvel Snap. If you've listened to this podcast at all, you know I love Marvel Snap. I think Scott would love Marvel Snap. I think he should play Marvel Snap. It feels like the DC deck building game, but quicker and against other people. It is a blast. Freaking love the game. Probably my most played game of 2023. Mike, what are your thoughts on Marvel Snap? Great
Really
game.
good. Really fun. Really easy to pick up and play. And I also think Scott would really enjoy it too.
All right.
Scott?
I've said my things before, owned by TikTok, and we all know how, TikTok, the CCP, all that stuff. But really what it comes down to it is the same reason why I'm not into mobile gaming at all. I am at one of three places. I really am. It's very sad. There's one of three things I am doing in my life. I am either at work and running around, and obviously I can't play mobile games there. I'm in my car driving to either work or back home, or I'm home. And I guarantee you, if I'm at home, I'm sure as hell I'm not going to spend my time playing the game on my phone. I'm going to be playing a game at my television. So there's really no room in Scott's life for Marvel Snap.
Yes, there is.
Well,
yes,
well,
there is.
well,
I can prove you
where
wrong.
is the time?
Drop it. Drop it, Mike.
And I am not. I think it's disgusting people playing on their phones in the restroom. I don't suggest that. I think that is
Scott.
You're touching your wiener, you're wiping your butt, and then you're touching your phone. That is disgusting. That is nasty.
So I have to say a couple things about this, okay? Number one.
We're supposed to end it. We're supposed to wrap up. No, we don't talk about wieners.
No.
Okay,
So,
fine. Let's talk about
unless-
wieners. Am I saying wieners a lot? I feel like I am.
Do you not wash properly?
Well, how
do you
hold
do
your
you need help
phone while
washing?
you're doing the business, and then you're wiping, and while you're I don't know.
Okay. I saw what your rant was actually supposed to be, so here we go. I'm going to go ahead and do it for you. You could be like Matt and just sit down while you go to pee first.
I don't do that.
So you can sit down. You could sit down first and then pull your phone out. Unless you're holding your wiener the entire time while you're dropping a deuce, which that brings up a whole other plethora of questions, but I don't want to get into that. You sit down. Did you know that the toilet seat is one of the cleanest places in your house?
Bullshit. Fake
Where
news,
is your
fake
ass all day?
science.
Where is your ass all day?
Shaking it.
But is it shaking it for everybody to see with no pants on and no underwear on?
Oh yeah.
Oh, so you're just going around butt naked, huh? You're doing the Sasquatch?
We found Scott's day job. It's actually a stripper.
Oh,
That is really my job.
That's his real job.
That is my.
Not I
that's
fix
my
it.
moonlight
It's I
ad.
strip it.
Shake it.
Anyway,
strip it and
you
take it.
could play on the toilet. I don't like mobile games either. You can play on the toilet, do 2 matches, and you're done.
2
Just like
matches. How long do you spend on the? How long is a game?
They're not
3
like
minutes.
3 minutes max if you're really wanting to drag it out.
All right. Okay. 6-minute bathroom break. I guess that's believable.
For deucing. Come on now. I'm going there to pee. I ain't touching anything.
Snapping and deucing. That's what I'm doing. All right. Wing that went down a path I wasn't expecting, but I'm very happy because Scott said wiener a bunch of times. I think we're done.
I think we're done.
Bye.
I think it's time to say goodbye. So see y'all later. We appreciate you. Okay, bye.